Now, is this typical horse trading or something more extreme or concerning? The answer may turn in how Republicans use these new powers if they pass the House in this vote this hour, how they use them in the future. Some accounts suggest McCarthy already gave away so much that this could be a hollow victory for him. One Washington Post column argues he is destroying the House itself. The hardliners say their victory is actually so complete, McCarthy's power will make basically the speakership for him ceremonial.
If Kevin McCarthy doesn't bow out, then he will have to live the entirety of his speakership in a straitjacket constructed by these rules that we're working on now.
There are some who have been objecting to Mr. McCarthy who are working on perhaps changes to the rules, changes to circumstance that would convert the speakership from the great, awesome, powerful position it is now to more of a ceremonial position, almost akin to the Speaker in the British House of Commons.
That's how Gates puts it. And we'll get back to the British House of Commons example. Whatever you think of Mr. Gates, that example has some relevance to part of this. But there he's obviously trying to shade, troll, and bait his apparent nemesis, Mr. McCarthy. What's going on here, though, really matters. And that's why I want to take a moment to walk it through with you as we start the new week in the new Congress and keep an eye on the vote. We're dealing with Republicans who've proven they will hijack and crash the plane, who threaten chaos to get something that they want. That's the old way, right? You threaten the chaos. But for some of these folks, it appears chaos is just what they want. It's not the leverage, it's the whole goal. So if you put aside being, say, responsible or ethical, you can also see how that approach can work against an opponent. When Republicans threatened Obama with government chaos, crashing the debt ceiling, shuttering the federal government, some of them reasoned that, well, even if it did wreak havoc, it would just taint Obama's tenure. Bottom line, they argued the hijacking was okay against an opponent. And now, this whole last week into tonight, we are seeing Republicans use that kind of hijacking against their own Republican leaders. Now, the seeds of this rebellion did begin with the anti-Obama Tea Party, and it did have some blowback for Speaker Boehner. The Tea Party faction argued that even if they did crash the debt ceiling and hurt America's credit, they all saw that as ultimately an Obama problem. Now, remember, John Boehner disagreed. If you go back to that clash over a decade ago, Speaker Boehner was telling the rebels to their face that kind of hijacking would hurt them all.
John Boehner is cracking the whip. He convened a meeting of all 240 House Republicans today. Sources who were there tell ABC he had a blunt message for Tea Partiers. Get your in line, he said. I can't do this job unless you are behind me.
Now, they ultimately handled that debt. Different Republicans drew different lessons, though, from the standoffs. Republican leaders from Boehner, as mentioned, to Paul Ryan, saw hijacking with no endgame as basically dumb. When you hijack without an endgame or a plan, they said, you would just draw attention to the GOP's political failures, like their failure to end Obamacare, and raise fantasy expectations among the base and waste capital on impossible goals. I'm summarizing their position. Now, other Republicans, and this matters for tonight, they see hijacking as a tactic that works in the short run, that elevates otherwise low-ranking members like Matt Gaetz to the scene you see here that made so much news. He's literally, physically, in public on par with the Speaker as they battle it out, as the Speaker has to deal with him. They see this hijacking as a way to win concessions they would otherwise never get. And the hardcore tactics that so many in the GOP base cheered when they thought it was hurting Obama are now deemed, and I'm quoting, they're deemed unfair, idiotic, clownish when used against Republican elites, which is part of why Republican allies on Fox were so suddenly aghast last week. They don't like this medicine that they had been prescribing.
This is not democracy. This is a televised hijacking.
These 20 people are making the Republicans look like idiots.
House Republicans now are on the verge of becoming a total clown show if they're not careful.
Bad, disaster. This is the same set of hijacking tactics that were used against the United States government, patriotic goals, funding the government, then President Obama. They don't like it now against themselves. Or take Fox News' sister publication, The Wall Street Journal, blasting the rebels' performance and saying, finally, okay, take the win today, but very upset about how this all went down. Now, they struck a deal. Many in D.C. are now worrying what it means for governing over the next 2 years. If a few votes can crash the speaker or any related deals, and the people with the votes, the Matt Gaetzes, have a kind of joker energy, happy to threaten disaster because they'd love to watch the world burn, well, this is something many people are concerned about for governing. The joker mentality is something, of course, Alfred famously warned Batman about.
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
It was burning last week, at least according to the normal approach of the House. Now, the reference might seem dramatic, but when Boehner was out of government and speaking freely, he bluntly said these same hardliners had basically no actual positions. They weren't for anything. They were kind of a cross between the Joker reference we just made and another classic reference, the nihilists in The Big Lebowski.
I'm negotiating with the White House, and I'm naked. I've got no position because my guys wouldn't vote for anything.
They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with.
Some of these members, I'm not quite sure what they're for.
He believes in nothing, Lebowski, nothing.
They're against everything. But I've never been able to determine what they're for.
They were nihilists, man.
Huh?
They kept saying they believed in nothing.
Nihilists. Me. I mean, say what you want about the tenets of National Socialism, dude. At least it's an ethos.
It is an ethos. The satire there is about people with no beliefs, which is how Boehner viewed these hardline Republicans. But some Republicans say reducing the speaker's power is a reform that's larger than McCarthy, that it's not only tied to right-wing chaos. Now, there's also the question tonight of how these powers will really be used. This is a point I discussed with the congressman who was just in the mix last week as a potential alternative speaker candidate to McCarthy, Byron Donalds.
This place for the past 50 years has consistently put more power into the hands of the Speaker of the House. That's not against Kevin McCarthy. That's an indictment of the process.
What would improve their lives out of this process this week and these rule proposals?
Well, one of the big things is about being able to have amendments towards appropriation packages, something that has largely been shut down in this place.
Now, let's be fair and clear. That actually brings us to a point that was sometimes drowned out by the Republican self-inflicted drama last week. On paper, some of these changes actually could be potentially constructive. You heard one mention there that has to do with how amendments are processed. Take another, the rushed process for bills, which, by the way, people have lamented across the spectrum. The new rules, which they're voting on this hour, require 3 days to review the actual text of any new bill. Now, straight up, that can be good for transparency. And while we all know why McCarthy opposed making it so easy to hold that snap vote to oust the speaker, he doesn't trust these hardliners. On paper, that structural change isn't automatically good or bad. It's not automatically right-wing or left-wing. It just gives more leverage to the rank and file. Remember we said we'd come back to that England reference? Well, other democracies use this kind of similar system for their parliaments, which can remove a head of state on these kind of snap votes. England does it that way, as does Ireland, which recently held exactly that kind of no-confidence vote. Now, in today's GOP, many experts expect this kind of vote only to lurch right. But it's also possible it could devolve and hand out power in other ways, in a different Congress or against a different debate. Say, imagine another pandemic with new rules or talk of war. With a razor-thin coalition right now, when you only need 5 votes to swing it, these rules could spur potentially new coalitions. And before you say, okay, Ari, you're really trying to find a silver lining amidst a whole bunch of chaos, let's be clear. You might be right. They might only use this to lurch right. But let's remember, with all intellectual humility, history is full of changes that brought in unintended or unforeseen consequences. And recent American history is full of a bunch of overconfident beltway predictions proven wrong. So we may just have to follow the facts and see how these powers are used. Now, I kept saying on paper and considering these points. The reality could be different because, as I mentioned at the top of this breakdown, there's also what ain't on paper, what for some reason Republicans want to keep secret, and we are eyeing this too. Reports of secret backroom deals for the hardliners. Republicans in the House are actually the ones calling this out. Take Representative Mace, who just rebuked the hardliners for hypocrisy, saying they talk about the big swamp and then asked for special swamp treats in backroom deals.
They're the ones that are saying they were, quote, fighting the swamp, but then yet went and tried to act like, like they actually are the swamp by trying to do these backroom deals. There's a small handful of individuals in that 20 who were trying to cut deals in secret.
Didn't they succeed in doing that?
Nobody else know about them. We're not sure. We don't know at this point.
That's a Republican accusing Republicans of a Trump-style con. Lie about draining the swamp while filling it up. Now, the hardliners got their pound of alligator flesh from the Beltway swamp, while they now stand accused of becoming mini alligator swamp creatures themselves. But here's the thing about government, when you take it all together, and why I wanted to really reflect on what we've learned here going into this vote tonight. No matter how much opportunists try to use democracy or government for fame, power, fortune, or chaos, sooner or later the bills do come due, because there is a constitutional system. There are deadlines. And there's a reason that we're not talking about Speaker Boehner or Speaker Ryan or Congresswoman Palin or a red wave that never materialized despite some of the real problems the Biden administration was facing going into November. And the reason is pretty simple. Chaos and nihilism are not popular over the long run. Even an ethos, to quote our friends over at the Big Lebowski, even an ethos isn't enough. At the end of the day, over the long haul, you need leadership, responsibility, and for the American people, some results.